Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think there is some problem and that's why my audio is not coming. Okay, fine. So let us start from the beginning. So whatever we have discussed and whatever we have talked. So today we are going to talk on the topics that I have written already, that object-oriented programming concept in Java. So the thing is, first we need to know that what is the problem or what is this object-oriented programming concept that we can implement in Java. Talking about these particular things in our last classes, we have talked that what is an object, that it is a real world entity. Fine. So we want to implement some real world entities into our programming. So what is the main object or main, we can say main concept of this object oriented programming? That to combine some data and the function, to bind some data and the function together and working upon them so that each and every part of the code can execute and we can get a result. This is the main purpose of an object-oriented programming, where we can bind the data and the function together. Now to do this, how we can bind the data and as well as the function together, how we can work on it. To do this, we need to know some methods, that how to declare a method and how the things can be passed. Method declaration and the passing of the data is an important part. So before proceeding for those object classes in a larger term, broader term, first we need to know the concept of the method declaration and how we can pass the data. So this talking about the part of method declaration, right? First, we are going to talk about the part of method declaration. In this part, in the context of this method declaration, there are three basic components, right? We are going to talk about some basic component one by one. First of all, the access modifier. First, the thing is very important. First, very thing is that access modifier. What is the part of this access modifier? That where we can access different types of the methods, where it can be accessed in our application. So the access specifier will define the method or what are the type of the method and where we can access that in our application. So when talking about this access specifier, the first term, that is public, protected, private and default. There are these four type of access modifier or access specifiers are present. There are four basic types of access modifier, or I can say also specifier. Access modifier or access specifier is present. First one is public, second one is private, third one is protected, and fourth one is default. So this four type of access modifier or specifier we have in the concept of this object-oriented programming method declaration part. So what is public, what is protected, what is the private, or what is the default? So public means it can accessible or it is accessible in all classes in our application. So when we are writing some public type of class, then we are trying that either or any type of we are declaring something in a publicly way, it can be accessed by all class that is present in our application or in our program, we can say. So that is the role of public, that it can access by all of our application or all of our program. Throughout the program we can access. Second one, that is the part of protected. So protected, that it can be accessed within a package where it is defined or in this subclasses. So protected, we are now protecting the particular scenario. It can only be accessed within the package. It will be accessed by some particular packages where it is defined. Private, it can be accessed only within the class where it is defined. So public, it can be accessed by all over the class. Private, it can be accessed within a particular class where the thing is actually defined. Protected, it can access within a package. And lastly, the default, where we didn't mention any type of modifier, nothing. We didn't public, we didn't mention protected, we didn't mention private, anything. So by default, it will be a default that's accessible within the class, the package where it can be defined. So public, private, protected, and default, these four type of access modifiers are present into the scenario or into the object-oriented programming concept. Now, when we are using some access modifier or access method, there are some return type data. What we were talked that in our previous classes, that public static void main. What is the fourth thing term? What are the fourth terms that is present? So that comes the scenario, the public static void main. That is some access modifier that is present, some return type data, some, these are the things that is present. So next the thing is the return type, where the data or type of the value will be returned by the method, whatever the method we are using, or it will be void if it does not return a value. So this next we are talking about the return type, where two scenario can be happen. One, it will return some value, and secondly, return nothing. So it will return some value, or either one, it will return nothing. So it will return nothing at the scenario of void. So if it will be void, then it will not return any kind of value. But it will return, if it is not void, then it will return a particular data type of that particular value returned by that particular method. So now coming to the part of method name, there are some method name that is present, some rules for the field where we can apply some method name, parameter list, where it will be separated by some commas, parentheses, brackets, braces. These are the things, parameter list, exception list, body. These are the things that is present in our access modifier part. So the first part in the 6 components, that is the first access specifier, we can talk about each and everything that is present here. Now, the next part, that is message passing. The next part here, that is message passing. We want to pass the message. We want to communicate. That means when the programming is that we are writing some programming, what is the purpose of the program? Because we are writing to deal with any kind of problem, and we are through that particular program, the user trying to interact. So user will put some value, the user have an interaction with the opposite end, right? So the object for the message passing is to communicate with one another by sending or some receiving information. So it is the concept in general of all over the concept where we can take it message passing in either object-oriented programming or in the case of networking, data communication, wherever the things we can talk. The message passing, the main object of the message passing is to communicate with one another by sending and receiving information, right? So the basic concept of message passing, to communicate with one another, right? To communicate with one another, either by sending some information or either by receiving some information. So the part, the message. So a message here which will work as an object. The message for an object is request for execution of the program or execution of the procedure. So here in the concept of this object-oriented programming or Java, we can talk, the message here for an object is a request. A message for an object here is a request for execution of that particular program or the particular procedure. And so it will need some function or need some particular type of binds of that function and the data together to get a desired result, to generate and to get a desired result. So in the part of this message passing, the message here for an object is a request to execute and to proceed for the purpose to proceed for the execution to get a desired output, to generate a result here in the particular sense of message passing. So here in the part of this message passing, it involves specifying some particular name of the object, function, and the information of the data that will be sent, right? So this is the basic starting of the object-oriented programming. Now, this object-oriented programming have some particular or particular follow something, that is some class will be there, object will be there, methods and method passing will be there. We have talked about that. And moreover, some more characteristic of object-oriented programming are present, such as abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. So this object-oriented programming concept is some advanced level with basic of C programming. So here we can do some more things like inheritance, like encapsulation, polymorphism, abstraction. This type of things can be done. Now, the first talking about this particular scenario, a class. What is a class? We have started a discussion, means a smaller discussion on the particular topic of our class. What is a class? So a class, we can talk about that it is a user defined some concept where objects are created. The under in this class, under the class, some object will be created, or it is a prototype from which the object will be created. So it represents some set of properties. A class have content, a class will contain some set of properties or some methods that have common features that are common to all the objects of the type, right? So class we can consist of one where it will be a prototype of some objects that we are going to create, where the properties or the method that we are going to use that will be common to all the objects. So the class can be must have some components. The class declaration, we need to declare the class at the starting of the program. So this must be include some of these components. What are the components of these classes? We can talk about. First one, a modifier. So the components of the class, if you're going to talk, first one, a modifier. First, we need to talk one by one. What is the concept of the class? Just a minute. Okay. So the modifiers, we are going to talk one by one. First of all, the class, the modifiers. So a class, we need to mention that whether it is a public class, it is a private class, it is a protected class or a default. So what is the whatever the things we just have discussed about the modifier. So a class must have a modifier. A class can be public, can be private, can be protected, or can be as any kind of default access we can talk about. First component of a class is the modifier. Second, the keyword. Second component of the class is the keyword that is going to use to create a class. That is going to use to create a class. So next one is the keyword. First one, the modifier, where we need to mention that whether it is a public, a protected, or a private, or it can be a default. Second one, the keyword, where we need to mention that class that we're going to create, the keyword that is going to use to create that particular class. Third one, the third component here, that is the class name. So the class must have a particular name. It can be anything, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, depending upon the user or who is going to do the program. Depending upon the person, the class name will be there, but a name should be there. So third component is class name. So a name for the class need to be there. Next, a super class. So what is the concept of what is this super class? That the thing is that super class is not needed in every program or anything. It can be, what is this? First of all, super class. Let's talk about it. What is the super class? That the name of the class parent. Means if we are trying, or if the class is trying to get some properties or inheriting some properties from other classes, right? Or it can be extending. It is the thing that we can call, so the thing is extension. Two part, either it can be a super class or either it can be a subclass. So now name of the class parent, if it is a super class, or if we were trying to extend this program, extend this class in modality mode to any other program, then it can be a subclass. So one parent, so the super class, or it can be a subclass. It is not necessary for every program or every class, but in case if it is there, then it can be mentioned either it is a super class or it can be a subclass, right? So it's next one, the interfaces. And interfaces means a very basic thing, that the comma, the braces that we are going to use, or the keywords if we are going to implement inside our program, inside our class. So that is the interface. And last of all, the body, where whatever the steps or whatever the statements, whatever the lines of code that we need to write to execute the particular program, that this particular thing is, it will be faced by some particular braces, right? Curly braces starting and opening or and closing curly braces. Within that, we can write whatever the lines of statements, lines of code. So these are the very basic components of a class that can be talked. That's the modifier, class keyword, class name, superclass or subclass if anything is present, interfaces, or the body. Now, talking about the classes, as I said, what is the class? That the scenario, it will be a prototype from which object will be created. A simple prototype from where the object will be created. Now, what is the object? What is a object? We have already talked what is an object. That is in a real life entity. In the last classes, we have this discussion, and talking about the discussion, it consists of three things that we have talked: that state, behavior, or any type of identity. Either it can be a state, either it can be a behavior, or any type of identity. Things can be present. Now, this object-oriented programming, what are the many other characteristics that we can use here? What are the much more functionality or much more characteristics that can be present here? So first thing, or means we can say why it is separate or why it is some more advantage over some C programming or any is the basis of C programming. First we learn C. Now why this object-oriented programming comes instead of C? Because C must have some deficiencies, must have something that is not there, that is lagging. So that's why this object-oriented programming concept is there to overcome all of those drawbacks. So first about this, talking about the drawbacks that was not present, what that the drawback that is present in our C that is overcome here. First one is the abstraction. First part we can talk about, the first thing that we can talk about here, that is data abstraction. The part or the thing is, what is this data abstraction? So the data abstraction, we can say it is a property of object-oriented programming where it is the essential details are displayed by the user. So abstraction is the property in the object-oriented programming concept which only the essential details are displayed to the user. Once the thing is, we don't want to display, just a minute. We want actually we don't want to display the whole information to the user, because suppose I am a user, I am doing or working on any software. So the software, how it is working, what is the backend scenario, what is the thing going on, that a user will not going to know about that. The user only is going to see the interfaces and things that and how it can be done. It is going to put some inputs and getting some output. That is the only thing the user knows. That is the essential information for the user, nothing more than that. So how the thing is going on, how the thing is actually working in the backend, a user will not able to know about this particular thing. That is the property called this data abstraction, where only the essential details are displayed to the user. Only whatever the things that the user need to know, that is actually present. So means a very simple example, going to, you are going to buy something, you are going to buy a car, right? So that is the thing, you are going to see the car, you are going to check the looks of the car from the outer end, you are going to check the seats of the car, means whatever the thing that is visible to you. Now there are some more things inside the engine, some many particular equipments are there, but how that things are going to function, do you bother, do a normal user who is going to buy that particular, that it doesn't bother. But the functionality of the things is a very important part, but that is not actually displayed, or that is the thing not actually considered for the user. So that is the thing, that data abstraction, where only the essential details are displayed by the user. So it can be the process of identifying only the required characteristic of an object, right? So whatever the things that is important to the user, that things can only be identified, or that thing also can be required by the user, nothing more than that. So that is the part of this data abstraction. Similarly, that is the concept in object-oriented programming for the data abstraction, where this particular concept was used. So abstraction here is present in our object-oriented programming, or also in our Java programming we can talk about, right? The next part, or the next characteristic that is present in our particular part of object-oriented programming, that is encapsulation. That is the part of this encapsulation. So what is this encapsulation? Can anyone tell me what is this encapsulation? What is encapsulation? Okay.
So we cover the data or encapsulate the data.
So finding data and the function in a single unit is called encapsulation.
Okay. So means the part or the thing is of encapsulation, that putting all the data in a single term. So too much data or the concept of the programming is huge. So binding all the things, wrapping up all the things, or putting all the data in a single unit. That is the known, or that is the concept of encapsulation. So we can say that encapsulation is a mechanism of object-oriented programming, or the property of an object-oriented programming, where we actually bind the code and the data together. We are going to bind the code and the data together in the part of this encapsulation, and both the things, the code and the data, both the things that can be manipulated. So both of the things will be put up in a single unit, will be bind together, right? So if we think about something, that encapsulation, it is a shield. It is a protective shield, we can say, in the case of this object-oriented programming, that prevents the data or the code accessed by the outside of that particular cell. Means any normal user, any other cannot access that code or the particular data, whatever is present there. So that is the concept of encapsulation. Means technically, if we talk about in the programming languages, that the class or the variables or the data, whatever the things are present in our class, is going to hide from the unknown member or from any outside member. That is the main part of the encapsulation. We are going to hide the thing from any outside world. So the hidden, it will be the total things that is bind together, the data and the code will bind together, and it will be hidden inside a class. So data in a class is hidden from any other class. There are maybe one, two, more than one classes are present. So the one class cannot access or cannot have the data or the code of any other class. It is also the part of this encapsulation, or in other word, we can also say that is known as the data hiding process, right? So this is the concept of encapsulation that is present in our object-oriented programming or the Java programming part. Now, the third part, what is the third important characteristic that is present in our Java programming or object-oriented programming, that is known as inheritance. That is known as inheritance. So what is the concept of inheritance? What is inheritance?
So other class can inherit the property of its.
Okay. Miss,
Sir,
Sir,
yeah.
inheritance means properties of a
inheritance,
base class.
One by one. First, I think
inheritance is the process by which object of one class can acquire the characteristics and properties of another class.
okay. Anyone wants to say any other thing? Fine. Okay. So the answer was okay. Correct. That where the property of the inheritance is saying, or it is the property that one class is allowed, or one class can be access or can get the property or the feature of any other class. This is the property, or this is the characteristic that is known as the inheritance. So we are trying to get the feature or get the properties or trying to inherit the properties of any other class. This is the part of this inheritance. But the thing is that while we are talking about the inheritance, there are some things that we need to know in case of this inheritance. First, the class, whether it is a superclass or whether it can be a subclass. Means superclass means the concept of the superclass, that suppose the new program is going to inherit the properties of any other class. That is the superclass from where we are going to inherit the property, right? That is the concept of superclass, that whose features are going to inherit is known as superclass means if we go back to the concept of Linux programming, maybe some of you know, or as I hope you have studied the concept of this Linux programming in your diploma, that a child and parent process. This is the concept of parent process, child process, where the child will have some properties of the parent when it will be going to, when a new process will be created. When child process is going to create, it will inherit some properties from the parent process. Similar type of concept is here, that is a superclass, means the parent class is from where the properties will be inherited to the newly created class or newly created program, right? That is the superclass. And subclass means the child process is known as the subclass, the class that inherits the properties of the class from the other class or the parent class or the superclass, that is known as the subclasses. The two concepts of superclass and the subclass, that is are actually connected to each other. Superclass is the parent class and subclass is the child class, right? So this is the part, or this is the thing that is also present in our inheritance, where we are going to inherit the properties or the features from a particular class. And lastly, one of the more important thing, or last one of the more another important particular characteristic that is present here, that is known as polymorphism. That is known as polymorphism.
Sir,
What is
abstract class
polymorphism?
क्या होता है sir? Abstract class.
Extra class.
Sir, abstract class.
Extract.
Sir, abstract class. AS.
Can you write the term? What you are saying?
Sir, abstract class, sir. Abstract class.
Okay, abstract class. Hello.
Yes, sir. Abstract class, sir. Abstract class.
Okay, okay. So you are talking about the abstract class. So the thing is,
Yes, sir.
when we are trying to talk about the abstract class, that needs to be declared as abstract. Means we are talking about the things that is public, private, protected. These are the things we have talked about now in just a few seconds back. So when we are talking about this abstract classes, we need to actually mention the term that is abstract. We need to mention that it is an abstract class. So what happened in the part of this abstract class? It may be include some methods. It may include some methods, or maybe it does not include any kind of method. So now this abstract class comes under the part of this abstraction. So what is an abstraction? The thing what first you need to know, what is an abstraction? It is a process of hiding the implementation of details or showing some functionality to the user. Means the particular concept of that data abstraction comes again. So abstraction, the abstract class comes from here, from the part of this data abstraction, the abstract class, where we can actually try to represent that how much data or how much thing that can be relayed or that can be passed to the user. So it cannot be instantiated. It is does not the subclass or the classes that is present declared as abstract. The thing is, in the part of this abstract class, we are going to show that how much we can actually show to the user, right? This is the part of this abstract classes. Okay, so what we are talking about, the part of this polymorphism. We are talking about the concept of this polymorphism. So what is the part of this polymorphism? That when we are talking about this object-oriented programming, this polymorphism property is known, or the thing is a concept that where it has the ability to differentiate it between, or to make a difference between the entities with the same name. It can be happen that there is a same name type of thing. So we need to differentiate that. That is the concept of polymorphism, means the same things looks alike. So it may be happen, means we can talk about some twin things, right? But twins must have some difference. So to identify that particular difference, that is the concept of this polymorphism. So the polymorphism, it may be some kind of same thing, same type of name that is present between the same type of entities, but we need to differentiate that what is the difference between those particular same type of things. So this is the concept of polymorphism, and this polymorphism, it is present, or it can be basically of two types happens in Java. That is one, overloading, and second one is known as the overriding. So the concept of polymorphism that is present in our Java, it can be two types. So either is overloading and second one is overriding. So what is the concept of overloading? If we talk about in the very basic, that it allows different methods having same name. So overloading, it allows the different methods to have the same type of name, but the thing, some differential type of things can be present there, however the number of input parameters or the output parameters or comparison differentiation will be there in the part of this overloading of the Java concept. So overloading, that it allows different type of method or having the same type of name, right? And next one, what is the present of overriding? That it allows a subclass or any type of child class we are talk about provide some specific type of implementation or a method that is already provided to any kind of parent classes. So these are the concept of polymorphism, where it can be present same type of name, but there have some differences. To identifying that particular differences, we need to find out what are the differences present. That is the concept of polymorphism. So whatever the drawbacks, means these are the drawbacks not present in our C programming, like we cannot do this type of thing. But in our Java or the object-oriented programming, we have implemented this type of things, or this type of things is present. So that is the main difference or main reason that is present for in our object-oriented programming concept, right? So as the time is going to end, I would like all of you kindly write your names in the chat box for attendance purpose. So it can be marked from my side. Fine. So you people kindly write your names in the chat box for your attendance.